Classical architecture. Rooted in the principles of ancient Greek and Roman architecture, classical architecture is characterized by a sense of balance, harmony, and proportion. Key features include columns, pediments, arches, and domes. Buildings in this style often exhibit symmetry and clarity of form, with a focus on creating grand and monumental structures such as temples, palaces, and government buildings. The Parthenon in Athens, Greece, is a quintessential example of classical architecture, featuring Doric columns, a pediment, and a symmetrical design. Gothic architecture. Gothic architecture emerged in medieval Europe, particularly during the 12th to 16th centuries. Notable features include pointed arches, ribbed vaults, flying buttresses, and large stained glass windows. Gothic cathedrals and churches are known for their verticality, aiming to inspire awe and convey a sense of spiritual transcendence through their soaring heights and intricate ornamentation. Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France, is an iconic example of Gothic architecture with its soaring pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and intricate stained glass windows. Baroque architecture. Developed in the 17th century, Baroque architecture is characterized by its ornate and theatrical style, often featuring dramatic use of light and shadow, dynamic movement, and rich decorative elements. Baroque buildings tend to be grandiose and expressive, with elaborate facades, intricate sculptures, and lavish interiors seen prominently in churches, palaces, and public squares. The Palace of Versailles in Versailles, France, exemplifies Baroque architecture with its opulent design, elaborate gardens, and grandiose interiors adorned with gilded decorations and frescoes. Renaissance architecture. Emerging during the Renaissance period in Europe, Renaissance architecture sought to revive the classical ideals of ancient Roman and Greek architecture. Key features include symmetry, proportion, domes, and arches. Renaissance buildings often exhibit a sense of harmony and humanism, with an emphasis on mathematical precision and the integration of art and architecture. The Florence Cathedral in Florence, Italy, showcases Renaissance architecture with its dome, reflecting the revival of classical forms and humanist ideals. Neoclassical architecture. Flourishing in the 18th and 19th centuries, Neoclassical architecture drew inspiration from classical Greek and Roman architecture. It emphasizes simplicity, clarity, and order, with features such as columns, pediments, and symmetrical designs. Neoclassical buildings often convey a sense of monumentality and dignity, reflecting the ideals of the Enlightenment and the values of democracy and reason. The United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., is a prime example of neoclassical architecture, featuring Corinthian columns, a central dome, and a symmetrical facade inspired by ancient Roman and Greek architecture. Modernist architecture. Emerging in the early 20th century, modernist architecture broke away from historical styles and embraced new technologies, materials, and design principles. Characterized by simplicity, functionality, and minimalism, modernist buildings often feature clean lines, open floor plans, and the use of industrial materials like steel, glass, and concrete. The Villa Savoye in Poissy, France, is a seminal example of modernist architecture, featuring clean lines, open floor plans, and a minimalist aesthetic that emphasizes functionality and geometric forms. Postmodern architecture. Reacting against the perceived limitations of modernism, postmodern architecture emerged in the late 20th century as a playful and eclectic style that incorporates historical references, diverse forms, and whimsical elements. Postmodern buildings often juxtapose different architectural styles and materials, challenging conventional notions of space and identity. The Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, Spain, is a striking example of postmodern architecture, featuring unconventional forms, titanium cladding, and a dynamic facade that challenges traditional notions of space and structure. Art Deco architecture. Originating in the 1920s and 1930s, Art Deco architecture is characterized by its sleek geometric forms, bold colors, and decorative motifs inspired by technology, nature, and ancient cultures. Art Deco buildings often feature streamlined facades, stepped setbacks, and ornamental details such as zigzags, chevrons, and sunbursts. This style is commonly associated with luxury and modernity, seen in skyscrapers, hotels, and cinemas of the period. The Chrysler Building in New York City, USA, is an iconic example of Art Deco architecture with its sleek setbacks, decorative spire, and ornamental details inspired by machine-age aesthetics. Bauhaus Architecture. Founded by Walter Gropius in Germany in 1919, the Bauhaus school promoted the idea of total design, integrating art, craft, and technology. Bauhaus architecture emphasizes simplicity, functionality, and mass production, with an emphasis on geometric forms, industrial materials, and rational design principles. Bauhaus buildings often prioritize efficiency and utility, with an aesthetic that is both modernist and minimalist. The Bauhaus building in Dessau, Germany, embodies Bauhaus architecture with its simple geometric forms, functionalist design, and emphasis on industrial materials such as steel and glass. Brutalist Architecture. Emerging in the mid-20th century, Brutalist architecture is characterized by its use of raw concrete, geometric forms, and bold, monumental structures. Brutalist buildings often emphasize functionality and structural honesty, with exposed concrete surfaces and minimal ornamentation. While controversial for its imposing appearance, Brutalism has gained recognition for its expressive and innovative approach to architecture, seen in structures such as the Boston City Hall and the Barbican Centre in London. The National Theatre in London, England, is a notable example of Brutalist architecture characterized by its exposed concrete surfaces, geometric shapes, and monumental presence. Contemporary architecture. Reflecting the diverse influences and innovations of the present day, contemporary architecture encompasses a wide range of styles, approaches, and technologies. Contemporary buildings may draw inspiration from historical traditions, cultural contexts, or environmental considerations, often incorporating sustainable design principles, advanced materials, and digital fabrication techniques. This fluid and evolving style reflects the dynamism of contemporary society and the constant push for innovation and creativity in architecture. The Sydney Opera House in Sydney, Australia, is a landmark of contemporary architecture, featuring sculptural forms, expressive curves, and innovative use of precast concrete shells. Sustainable architecture. With a growing awareness of environmental issues, sustainable architecture focuses on minimizing the ecological footprint of buildings through environmentally sensitive design strategies and practices. Sustainable buildings aim to reduce energy consumption, conserve natural resources, and promote occupant health and well-being. Design principles include passive solar design, energy-efficient systems, use of renewable materials, and integration with the surrounding landscape. Sustainable architecture seeks to create buildings that are not only environmentally responsible, but also aesthetically pleasing, functional, and socially equitable. The Edge in Amsterdam, Netherlands, often touted as the world's most sustainable office building, incorporates numerous sustainable design features such as solar panels, rainwater harvesting, and smart energy management systems to minimize its environmental impact.